Chapter 15. Elgerekt Forest. G. They maintained a steady pace through the woods, where the trees seemed to stretch for miles in every direction. Ghalen had thought the clear, crisp air would be preferable to the suffocating mist and well here. However, he realized that the mist had felt like a protective blanket. Now, he felt exposed. Every distant sound, whether from a bird or a critter, made him twitch and grip his blade tighter. The others appeared equally tense, moving silently as they jogged over fir, needles, and cones. Running up what felt like an endless hill, they came upon a plateau. Pyor raised his hand, signaling the group to a halt.
"This'll be the closest thing to safety we'll find for a while, I reckon,"
he said in a strained voice. The crisp air, thin and sharp, carried the invigorating scent of pine needles and damp earth. An unsettling quiet, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig underfoot and the distant cry of a lonely raven. Narrated knelt by a moss-covered rock, scrutinizing the ground with a furrowed brow. Her keen eyes darted from the tree line to the featureless expanse of the plateau.
"What are you looking for, Narrated?"
Ghalen asked. "Beasts," she replied. "Beasts trained to scout for the Elgerekt." Lily had a look of concern as she distributed the rations, her hand lingering on Galen's as she passed him a chunk of cheese. "It feels like we're being watched." Ghalen looked into the distance.
"I feel it too. We should not stay here long."
As the others ate, Narrated spread out a map. "We've covered a fair distance northwest. If the road stays clear and we keep up this pace, we should reach the gate in a day and a half by daylight," she said, then paused, frowning at the map. "However, I suspect our journey won't remain unchallenged." Ghalen noticed Fina struggling to catch her breath, unaccustomed to the traveling on foot. The demanding pace was taking its toll on her.
"Forgive me for dragging you into this."
Pyor handed her a water skin and reassured her.
"Don't worry, Fina. We're keeping a good pace, and you're not slowing us down at all. Any faster, and we'd lose our fighting strength."
He smiled at her.
"Besides, we'd be lost without a healer, and I doubt your tower is brimming with long-distance runners."
He gave her a wink. She let out a small laugh. "By the heavens, you're right. I'd love to see those old relics try to run," she said, pulling herself up with renewed determination in her eyes. Lily moved with a lightness and fluidity that only Narrated could match. At times, Ghalen could have sworn they were floating above the ground. The two often had to stop and wait for the rest of the group to catch up. As they traveled farther, Narrated began checking her map more often and making small changes to their path. It left Ghalen with the uneasy feeling that something wasn't right. Sometime later, Narrated halted beside a stream and muttered about it being in the wrong place. Ghalen caught up and exchanged a knowing look with Pyor.
"Do these elves ever tire?"
Pyor asked, panting and struggling to catch his breath. Ghalen, smirking despite his exhaustion, said,
"You're pushing us harder than the drill sergeants at the academy."
Haldor glanced back at Fina, who now seemed less affected than any of them.
"What did you say to motivate her? Mind sharing that same secret with me?"
Pyor widened his eyes in mock surprise.
"Was that a joke? Are you sure you're okay?"
Line. Haldor managed a smile. Ghalen went up to Narrated.
"Are we lost?"
Her head snapped towards him. "No, it is just the landscape that has changed more than I have anticipated. We are losing precious time." The day had passed into night. They had, under the circumstances, covered more ground than Narrated had dared hope for. She said that if the land did not deviate too much from her maps, they might reach the gate within hours by morning. As they took turns on guard duty, Ghalen was looking out into the dark where Pyor cut off his solidarity thoughts.
"We won't be able to maintain this pace in the morning, Ghalen. Everyone is exhausted."
Ghalen gave a worried glance over the sleeping party, then nodded.
"You're right. Tomorrow will be slower, but we must do our best, old friend."
Pyor straightened and peered out into the night.
"I'm sure glad we brought that elf along, though. We'd be lost in minutes without her." "I believe you are right. With your sense of direction, we would be lost in minutes."
Pyor snorted.
"Well, that's low."
The 2 hours that had been agreed upon felt like an eternity. Ghalen felt exhausted. At first he was afraid he would not be able to sleep in the forest, but now he knew he would go out cold the second he lay down.
Think it's about time?
He asked, glancing over at Pyor.
Hi, let's change shifts. I think I'll need that short rest.
Ghalen gently roused Haldor for the next shift.
Has everything been quiet?
Haldor asked, getting straight to the point. Ghalen confirmed.
Nothing but the sound of squirrels in the darkness, as far as I can tell.
They exchanged concerned looks. As Ghalen rested his head on a bundle of clothes, he caught the low murmur of Pyor and Haldor's voices at the edge of camp.
What do you make of all this?
Haldor asked, his tone cautious.
I trust Ghalen.
Pyor replied evenly.
He's guided us through worse.
Haldor let out a soft sigh.
That he has. Still, the odds we face now, they are enough to make anyone uneasy.
Unease is natural, old friend.
Pyor said, his voice steady.
But doubt? I've none of that. Ghalen has always found a way. And this time, I'll make sure he has every chance to succeed. If there is anyone who can pull us through this, it's him.
There was a moment of silence before Pyor's tone sharpened.
You know why I'm here, Aldor. I'll do whatever it takes. Not for honor, nor for duty, but for my daughter. And by the holy light of Lumar, who you put so much faith in, nothing will stand in my way. Not this mission, not our enemies, nothing.
Haldor's voice softened, filled with quiet respect.
I understand. Forgive me if my words sounded uncertain. The strain of the journey is wearing on us all. Get some rest, old friend. Tomorrow will demand everything of us.
Ghalen clamped his eyes shut. Anxiety filled him like so many times before, doubting he could live up to their expectations. Ghalen barely registered the shaking at first. Time to go. You can sleep more when you're dead. Fina's voice dragged him back, forcing his eyes open. He wasn't sure if he was actually dead. The 2 hours felt more like 5 minutes, but it would have to suffice. He gathered his things and bit off a chunk of bread as he set off at a jog. They had been on the move for perhaps 20 minutes when Nelrith gestured for them to stop and crouch. Following her lead, but uncertain of the reason, they hid.
What's wrong, Nelrith? Enemies?
Ghalen whispered. Nelrith's eyes darted around. I'm unsure, my king. But I sense... Lily interrupted, her voice tinged with a cold urgency. There, in the trees. She pointed at a massive hawk perched nearby, its head cocked in their direction. Before anyone could react, Nelrith had an arrow knocked and let it fly. The hawk fell.
By the light! That creature could snatch a boy as if he were a mere rabbit!
Pyor exclaimed. Ghalen winced, his expression tight.
That was a sky hunter. The Elgerekt revere birds of prey as messengers of the heavens. This may come back to haunt us.
Nelrith was already moving toward the carcass. It would have betrayed our position, she said curtly. Better they think we're heretics than find our tracks. As they neared the body, 2 more hawks burst from the canopy. Nelrith fired again, swift and sure, but her arrows missed. Feathered blurs vanished into the sky. The mass grace, they'll be on our trail now, she muttered. The slain hawk seemed a grim omen. Ghalen stared at its broken form.
Then we must hope that the gate offers more than salvation. We may need absolution, too.
With renewed urgency, they pressed onward. Heading up another hill, Nelrith halted them. She outlined their path, a direct journey north. If you can maintain this pace, you should reach the gates within the hour, she added. I'll scout ahead. Without further delay, she dashed off. The speed at which she moved was astounding. The ranger seemed to blend in with the forest, her pace unmatched. Ghalen watched her disappear.
To her, it must seem as slow as Pyor's old Nan.
The group continued in the direction Nelrith had indicated. Aware that they could not match her speed, Pyor and Haldor made it clear through ragged breaths that their combat readiness was compromised. Any faster, and they might as well abandon their swords. Half an hour crawled by, marked only by the rhythmic crunch of boots on the forest floor. Fatigue was gnawing at their bones when Fina held up a hand, her voice barely a whisper. Rest. They sank onto moss-covered logs. Ghalen felt his muscles screaming in protest. A moment of silence descended, shattered only by the sigh of the wind in the pines. A twig snapped, and Haldor's hand shot to his sword hilt. Eyes narrowing, he followed the rustle of unseen movement. It crept closer.
Prepare yourselves!
Ghalen said, sharp as a snapped arrow. Pyor and Haldor moved in unison, their practiced steps weaving a protective net around Fina and Lily. Blades gleamed in the sunlight, their veins bulging and every muscle primed for battle. Their eyes darted around, trying to pinpoint the origin of the sound. A rabbit burst forth, startling Fina. Haldor, on high alert with his blade drawn, nearly struck the creature. Ghalen was about to laugh at the matter. Then Nelrith re-emerged between the trees. "Quickly, my liege," she urged, descending from a nearby knoll. "The berserkers approach from the northeast. We must shift our course westward." The group's brief pause had scarcely given them a moment to regain their strength. Galen's heart was racing, but he still felt a wave of relief flood over him. He had seen too much violence and too much loss. Any opportunity to avoid further conflict was greatly received. Now Nelrith stopped them just shy of a looming hill crest. "Beyond this ridge lies the gate, Ghalen," she announced. "I hope it will provide us some divine intervention because the enemy will be on our heels at any moment." Nelrith's calm demeanor showed signs of distress. Ghalen caught his breath and grasped Nelrith's shoulder.
I place my hopes in Lumar's grace. But if this fails, I won't let the capital's first knowledge of our defeat be the sight of Elgerekt forces at its gates. You must blend into the forest, Nelireth. Rejoin us if fate allows, but if not, return to Hyphara and inform them of our fate.
Nelrith's eyes widened in disbelief. "Abandon you? Now? After all we've endured? My place is by your side, seeing our mission to its end."
That's an order, High Ranger.
Ghalen kept his voice firm.
Of all of us, only you have the skill to navigate these woods unseen by the enemy. And only you can make the return journey alive. We'll discuss this no further. Forward, with the light's blessing.
His hand squeezed Nelrith's shoulder. Nelrith nodded, frowning. "May the light guide your path." She met each of their gazes. "Go in the light, my friends." With that, she vanished into the forest. As they neared the end of the hill's edge, Lily slowed to a walk. Ghalen glanced back.
"Lily, we have to hurry!"
She looked at him with a blank expression. "My head," she said, massaging her temples. "The voices, they're tearing me apart." Ghalen felt the barrier's power turning his own thoughts into a jumbled mess, his temples throbbing with pain. But there was no time to stop now. He grabbed her hand, led her over to the edge of the hill, then stopped and gasped. It was a treeless expanse leading up to the gate. The wall they had traced the entire way now seemed insignificant compared to the colossal gate standing ahead. The architecture was a masterpiece on an unparalleled scale, with huge wooden details carved to perfection. Like the previous gate they had encountered, age-old paths, timelessly preserved, guided them forward. The gate's towering spires seemed to reach for the sky. Each door was adorned with immense red crystals, gleaming in the sunlight, and like the blue gates, there were crests built into 4 quadrants: a gust of wind, a mountain, a wave, and a tree, the symbols dimly glowing. "We're here," Fina whispered, her voice choked, tears glistening on her lashes. Pyor and Haldor looked in either direction.
"No signs of the Elgerekt,"
Pyor said.
"It seems we've made it before them,"
Haldor added.
"We go onward,"
Ghalen said. They dashed down the mosaic path. As they got close to the gate, just a stone's throw away, a giant hawk screeched. It landed between them and the entrance. Pyor's knuckles whitened as he gripped his sword.
"Only one way forward,"
he said, edging closer to it. The hawk's penetrating gaze met theirs. It tilted its head, assessing them. Ghalen scanned the horizon for additional threats, but saw none.
"We're out of time,"
he whispered, then bellowed.
"Charge!"
They surged toward the gates. The hawk unfurled its wings in a wide arc, emitting a shrill, jarring cry. Suddenly, more beasts emerged to obstruct their path. Enormous wolves and towering bears burst from the woods, while large birds cast fast shadows from above. Berserkers wielding axes and sporting wild beards appeared on the hills behind them. They unsheathed their weapons. Vina fell to her knees, her voice laced with desperation. "By Lumar, by the light, protect us!" Lily reached her fingers towards the gate. Their enemies closed in around them, forcing the group into a tight circle. With their backs pressed together, they steeled themselves for what was to come. Both Haldor and Pyre seemed resolved that their final stand would be a battle to remember. A shared glance between the two sealed their silent vow. Ghalen closed his eyes.
"Sorry,"
was the only word he could muster. An apology for what was to unfold. From the mass of foes, a great axe was lifted high, parting the sea of enemies. It was grasped by a berserker, noticeably larger than the rest. His armor, made of rugged leather, featured a helm adorned with imposing antlers, undoubtedly a leader. In an authoritative yet broken common tongue, he thundered, "You trespass on sacred land. Kill friends in the sky." He spat onto the ground. "Crimes must be judged. Do you accept trial, or do we water the groves with your blood now?" Positioning for a deadly strike, Pyre seemed mere moments away from lunging at the towering leader, but just before he attacked, Ghalen cried out,
"Hold! There is no point in needlessly dying here if they offer us a trial. Lay down your arms!"
As a symbolic gesture, he cast his blade onto the earth. His actions left Pyre and Haldor momentarily dumbfounded, their hands instinctively clenched around their weapons. It took Galen's repeated command to snap them out of their stances. As their weapons clattered to the ground, Pyre looked at the enemy leader in horror.
"Never been much for religion, but if any of your angels of Lumer are real, now might be a good time to prove me wrong,"
he said desperately. Subdued and bound, the group was escorted back to the Berserkers' village. As they retraced the path they had come, Ghalen could not help but marvel at the bond these people shared with the wild beasts. In battle, he had assumed the animals were beaten into submission or controlled by some uncanny magic, but it seemed the beasts and men were, for a lack of a better word, friends. Observing a man ruffle the fur of a large battle-scarred wolf, he shook his head in dismay. They were bound at their wrists and flanked on all sides by man and beast alike. If there was anything positive to glean from the situation, not that Ghalen was an expert at finding silver linings, they were at least not running. For the first time in weeks, they strolled at a humane pace. He could finally appreciate the majesty of the giant forest. Were he not bound and facing a potential death sentence, it would have made a fine visit. The berserkers they encountered here differed from those they had battled on the northern front. Absent were the war paints and the malevolent aura that usually clung to them. Instead, these berserkers seemed more like the forest dwellers he remembered from more peaceful times. Nomads living in harmony with the beasts, devoid of any thirst for conquest or power. After several hours of walking, with only a brief pause, were they provided with water and some dried meat. They reached what Ghalen supposed was a village. Scattered timber huts and simple tents framed the landscape, and a serene lake to one side. The sheer number of people that had come to stare at them as they arrived hinted at a community comparable to a small town. But something other than the people drew their attention. More, a crude circular structure. Its base was a blend of sand and dirt. What looked like old bones were strewn around. There were trees and weapons, and at its center, a pit with sharpened poles.
Something tells me that circle has something to do with judgment.
They were shown to a sizable tent near the circle. Once inside and released from their bindings, they found a table and several chairs awaiting them. "Tonight you rest. Food will come, food will go," intoned the Elgerekt leader. "Rest well. Tomorrow you stand before judge." His final words, accompanied by a smirk, sent a wave of unease through Ghalen as the berserkers departed, letting the tent flap fall shut. The distant footfalls had barely faded when Pyre's voice whispered to the group.
"Can we not find a way out? Did any of you see a way? Ghalen, you're always steps ahead. Surely you've devised some plan."
Ghalen was taken off guard by the question. The thought of escape had not even crossed his mind. Haldor shifted and begun hesitantly.
Perhaps during nightfall, we could try the tent's rear. There's a sharp incline, but a fallen tree's roots run down it. And we might be able to...
Ghalen interrupted.
We will not attempt to escape. Firstly, I trust you all noticed the wolves that watched our every step. They surrounded the village, and I doubt they'd let us pass, even under the cover of night. Secondly, the Elgerekt detected us even when we thought our approach was concealed. What makes you think we can outmaneuver them now, especially from within their village? Lastly, our mission is the gate. Ensuring Lily reaches it is all that matters.
His gaze settled on Lily for a moment before he continued.
Even if we miraculously escaped and returned to Hyphara without her memories or power, we'd simply be rushing toward another impending doom. And, despite the war-torn years that have taught us to mistrust, I sense honor in these people. They have spared us so far, haven't they? No matter the nature of the trials ahead, we will face their judgment come morning. It's our best chance at reaching the gate.
Pyor slumped down in a chair.
So that's it then. We wait.
Nobody answered. They just all sat. It seemed, however absurd it was, that the future of the war between the Elgerekt and Arania now depended on the honor of the enemy. Ghalen recited what he remembered from his books about their people, who valued strength and honor. Most likely, if they could prove themselves strong tomorrow, they might be allowed to walk the land freely. At least, that was his hope. The tent flaps stirred, revealing men bearing food, an assortment of dried meat, mushrooms, vegetables, water, and the same vile-tasting ale they had managed to salvage after their victories in the north. At first, they regarded the food with skepticism. Then Fina snatched a cup from the table and raised it. Shades take us if we ought to spend the last day of our lives sulking. Besides, if they wished us dead, I think of several more creative ways they could have done it now without poisoning our food. Cheers! The others followed suit, raising their glasses in a toast. Sleep came easily to Ghalen that night. He was beyond exhausted, and this was the first night in a long time they could sleep without having to worry. After all, their situation could scarcely get any worse.